check is in the mail. How amazing was that? Okay, so part of our flow here at Zen is just to kind of keep a little bit of a balance between teaching, so enlightenment and entertainment, and kind of bringing it all together for a place for us to grow. For those of you that have never heard of me before, my name is Jacques Artgraven. I'm a controversial individual, as I think most of us that want to live from our heart tend to be. And I think anytime that you live authentically, someone or somebody is going to think you're controversial or you're weird or you're strange. And I'm here to celebrate that inside of each and every one of you. I'm going to have a short little talk because you're going to get more from me when we do the ceremony later. Today we have the invocation of earth. And that's the purpose or the agenda behind this specific Inner City Zen. I want to kind of give an insight, and I want to give a technique. I want to give a certain methodology. But before I do that, I want to tell you why I'm so passionate about this. I believe that one of the biggest problems that we face as a culture is something that Joseph Campbell said was a crisis of narrative. That the culture that we live in today is supporting a narrative that isn't one that brings out our best qualities. It's usually, if you're anyone that looks at social media or you look at what goes on in the news and you look at what goes on out there, there are narratives about racism, there's narratives about how we're different, there's narratives about how one's got power and one is without power. And I have a big belief in a study in quantum mechanics as well in biology, and I understand that whatever the story is that I have in my head becomes the emotional place that I operate from as a human being. And whether you believe in law of attraction or if you believe in quantum mechanics and you believe at these deep levels of the impact that frequency has on the world, or if you simply believe in basic psychology. And basic psychology says this, that the emotional state that you find yourself in right now and every day of your life determines the behaviors that flow out of your being. So you usually find people that are out there being assholes are people that find themselves in let's call it an assholic state. The state of being that you find yourself in emotionally and psychologically determine the behaviors that flow out of your body. You've had moments in your life that you acted out of absolute compassion. And then you've had moments in your life where you just shut off everybody. And the first thing prior to this was your emotional state. The old mystics had a good insight to this. They found, and it was an old philosophy, was the philosophy of love. And when we say, well, look at all the great teachers of all the great traditions, none of them really, Jesus didn't teach Christianity, Buddha didn't speak Buddhism. They taught about love. And essentially, when we look at this kind of love, we're not necessarily speaking about a romantic love. We're not speaking about a sexual love. We're speaking about a love based out of unity. And I want to explain this so I'm not just being airy-fairy to you. I'm not just telling you, hey, go feel good, bro. I want you to go have good vibes and be love. I want you to actually recognize the scientific basis on how this is at the core of your reality. You see, have you ever met somebody and you just instantaneously connected? Okay, we've all had those experiences. And then you've met other people where you had no possible connection with, even before. But there were these strange people you just felt connected to even before you started speaking. You might have felt some of those connections here today with some of these people. And the more you started opening up with those people, you found that you had similar belief systems or a similar way of looking at life. And here is why. Your conscious brain, your neocortex, translates or interprets 2,000 bits of information, where your cerebellum translates 400 billion bits of information. So to give you a perspective of that, if this little one piece of grass here was that 2,000 bits, then all of Mulder's Drift and all the surrounding areas would be the 400 billion. That's the conscious awareness that you have at every moment. So unconsciously, you know what's going on inside of every other human being in every other part of the world. And you are feeling that, and we call that our intuition. We also call this what connects us and attracts us to each other. And this is the important thing that we have to look at. Because the radio signal that adjusts this is the beliefs that you have. It's the story that you're telling yourself inside of your head about the people around you here today. It's about the experiences out there. Richard Bandler said it best when he said the richest man in a room is not the one with the most money. It's the one with the most options. When you look at the people around you today, when you look at the space that you're in today, do you see just other people? Or do you see the potential for love, the potential for business, the potential for connection, the potential for collaboration, the potential for creativity? Because this is a statement of the story that's going on inside of you. When you walk out in that society, do you have a story or a narrative that says, you know, at any moment I can get attacked, any moment things can go wrong? And you put yourself in that emotional state which infects your consciousness and leads and influences your behavior and affects your decisions? Or do you have a conversation or a story? And I'm not telling you to be blind about these things. I'm telling you to not only encourage these things, I'm telling you to speak a narrative inside of your heart of love. And when I say again, speak of love, I mean speak of unity. If you look at everyone else in your world, you can say, what do I not have in common with them? I'm a Christian or a Buddhist, or I'm a yogi, or I'm a this, and they're a that, and they're a that. And this creates a psychological division. And when you meet those people, and when they meet you, they're going to pick up a bad vibe. And you're going to pick up a bad vibe. And you're going to go into an emotional state which is going to influence your behavior, that unconsciously is going to communicate to them that belief. Who you are speaks so loud, I cannot hear what you're saying. We've all heard that statement. Do we live it? Do we practice it? Do you consciously look at the people that you have problems with in your life and say to yourself, what could I like about these people if I had to? I want you to think about a situation or a context right now, and I want to ask you to ask yourself a different set of questions. Because if you asked a different set of questions, you would evoke a different set of emotional states. And this is why it's important. Your emotional state, your current overarching emotional state, is the access key to your subconscious mind. Your unconscious, the unconscious mind that we all share, this collective intelligence that we can prove with science has great capacity, influence the quantum mechanical world, and brings about great resources. It is not accessed or influenced by our intellect. It's not accessed or influenced by you consciously pumping up affirmations. It's accessed the moment you shift the emotional position that you find yourself in. And what happens inside the brain is the second this I changes, there's something wonderful that happens. The emotions you find yourself in the most becomes your identity. If you're constantly finding yourself in sadness or in stress or in worry, you are a stressful person. You are a worried person. We all know joyful people in our life that just have good energy and good vibes. Don't you rather want to be with them than the other ones that are always freaking out? So your emotional state, really the vibe that you emit, becomes your tribe. It becomes the people you gather. If you're lonely, if you don't have a lot of love and don't have a lot of friends or don't have a lot of joy and it's not overwhelming in your life, maybe looking at your emotions is the starting point. So today we're taking that psychology a little bit further, and the old mystics actually had a lot of good work in this area. You see, the mystics and the old magicians, they understood that each and every one of us actually wants the same thing. When I say to myself that I want to have more love or I want to express more in art, they didn't say, oh, you want to be a painter or you want to be a sculptor. They said, Venus dwells within you. And they described Venus to have these attributes and these qualities and these archetypes. If you look at every major impulse or desire that we have in human beings, and we look at the ancient deities that have actually formulated our 7 days of the week and beyond, we find them represented there. And if I want you to take a moment and forget about religion and forget about deification, and you simply looked at them as symbols, and we looked at it as a language of symbolism, and we would understand that Jupiter then represented our nature and business. Mercury represented technology as it is today and communication. Mars represented our ability to take action and express our will. The Luna or the Moon represented our intuitive and more psychic portions of our brain, the part that goes beyond the information of our senses. We all experience these parts at varying levels inside of our life. But how is the process of accessing it consciously at any point? That's what all the old ceremonies that the old magicians had, all their weird, unique rituals were about. If you really look at those things and you take away the bias for a moment, what you'll find is this. You'll find a series of symbols, audio, visual, or kinesthetic, that someone would over years condition themselves into. Imagine somebody growing up in one of these mystical traditions. They'd start off formulating an idea of what is perfect love and what is perfect expression artistically. And let's just say in the tradition they grew up, it was Venus, or it was Aphrodite, or it was the Mother Mary. Emotionally, this human being would put themselves in very powerful emotional states. And every time they're in that powerful emotional state, they'll say the deity's name, or they'll visualize the symbol, or they'll sing the song or focus on the statue. And in so doing, what happens in the brain is neurologically these two get wired together. When this gets wired together inside of the nervous system, we start remapping the way the brain runs. Now what happens, that person is in an emotionally distraught state. They're feeling unloved, they're feeling bad or sad, and they suddenly pray to this deity, or they pray to this force, or they activate that sigils, or whatever methodology they use. The ritual is unimportant. The association and the meaning is what is important here. They activate and anchor that state. And the second they anchor and unlock that state, suddenly they start behaving in a different way that now attracts love, or now inspires creativity. You see, the gods are within us. They are within each and every one of us. Every single one of you sitting here today dwells right now with the entire kingdom of heaven, as well as the entire hierarchies of hell. That may sound like an extreme statement, but if we look at the symbol of language, it's a very accurate one. You know, back in the day, we didn't have the language of neuroscience. We didn't have the language of physics. We couldn't describe the narrative the way we can describe it today. So when we start off today in this process and we say we're doing the invocation of earth, what did the ancients represent this quality as? It represented it as grounding. You know, getting ourselves reconnected to the world. The earth symbolized breaking through the unconscious. We all know the symbolic pictures of the cave and moving within the mystery and finding what's really going on beneath the surface. The earth represented wealth. We all know the elementals associated behind it, the gnomes. They were guardians or keepers of the treasures. You know, they were hard laborers. They did the work. They didn't just sit on their ass. You know, sometimes I think that's the big lie in spirituality. I can just think positive and cool shit happens. If you're an asset, maybe. You know, but if you're going to be present and you're going to have to deal with life, there are a few more additional steps. The first key, though, is activating and unlocking new emotional states. The quality of your life or the quality of your reality is the quality of your consciousness. And consciousness is the mystery. And I love how the old alchemists did it, because they described everything in very sexual manners. And they described how, you know, the god would penetrate the goddess. And it's really, if you think about this sexual unity as the overwhelming consciousness with emotion and with ideas and with thoughts. And from that, it would be impregnated and it would give birth to behaviors and states and ideas and creativity, because this is what we know now as well scientifically. If I take two human beings and I quickly just let them introduce each other and I split them off into two separate rooms, and I stimulate the one individual with various signals, pain, pleasure, flashes of light, sound, all kinds of things like that. Subject A sitting in the other room has no conscious awareness of this. But if I put that guy on an EEG, his brain registers every single action. Consciously, we might not know what's going on in our neighbor's heart. Consciously, we might not know what's going on in our life. But our beliefs and our values and what's going on inside of our head is the radio signal that points access to this infinite sea of information. So right now, there's a lot of reasons for us to feel distressed. And I think being Earth, it was quite appropriate that there was an earthquake quite recently, symbolizing what's going on in our country at the moment. And this is something that we can't ignore. But what we can do is we can start changing the narrative that we give ourselves and we give our families. You know, do we give them a narrative that says, oh, we're struggling, or it's bad? Or do we give them a narrative that says, believe in yourself, you are the value that you seek. And everything that you need is within you right now. and we love each other, and we believe in each other, and we create a culture. Because before in history, before there's ever been a change in every area of life, and I'm not being political at all, please excuse me if it sounds like that, but I just want to bring out a single fact. Every single time there has been a change in our culture, it's been preceded by a change in our music and a change in our arts. If we as artists, as we as musicians, as teachers, as human beings, start putting our energy behind narratives that empower us and empower our people, regardless of race, gender, income, or anything like that, but simply that we do what the old mystics try to do and say that there is only one religion, and that is love, and there is only one race, and that is humanity. That's when I think beautiful things start to happen. Because I have been around people that have been depressed and I've seen no magic. And I've been around people that have been happy and I've seen nothing but magic. The emotional states we unlock within each other determine the life we create. I hope that idea gives you something to play with. You're still going to have quite a couple of different teachers today. You're going to have some poets. And I want you to just add to that energy and help us create, help us build Zen. And not just Zen here, but any other activity that's like this out there, whether it's a workshop or another teacher or another musician or another artist that you know about, that helps encourage this narrative. Bring them to us and share us with them. And let us help each other create a better tomorrow. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone that's coming. Thank you so much.